Alright, thanks for clicking on the video. This is week 3 of our 2 months of talking about movies and their remakes. So we're still in 1960 because we're going to be in 1960 for a while. But this week, I'm moving away from what I talked about. Last week we talked about 13 Ghosts and its remake. This week we've got Ocean's 11 from 1960 and Ocean's 11 from 2001. So this is the same year 13 Ghosts came out, so both movies had its original and its remake in the same year. That isn't going to be the thing with these 1960 movies. The last two, their remakes actually came out way earlier than these ones. But here we go, Ocean's 11 and Ocean's 11. So, Ocean's 11. The original starring the Rat Pack, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., and Peter Lawford. It is about 11 guys who decide to rob 5 casinos on New Year's Eve. It's about their planning and their preparation. This is a movie, the first time I watched it, I didn't care for it that much. I thought it was boring, I thought it was long, and it just didn't hold me the way I wanted it to. Only because I'd already seen the remake by then, and I was expecting something closer to that feel than what the movie actually feels like. Luckily, I've watched this movie a couple of times since then, and I've realized it's actually a really good movie. It's a very well done heist film, especially when you get the third act of the film has nothing to do with the heist. The heist is done, and it's them trying to regain the money. So instead of it ending with the successful heist, the movie continues on to, okay, you've got the money, you're now in Vegas, how do you get it out of Vegas? And one of the members of your crew is dead from a heart attack. So what do you do? And the ending is just an amazing shot of the Rat Pack walking down a Vegas street with Sammy Davis Jr. singing a song. And they're slowly walking, and you see behind them is one of the casinos, and it's advertising Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., and Frank Sinatra performing. It's a great movie, it's a classic heist film, and it's a lot of fun. We get to Ocean's 11. This is the 2001 version, the first of a trilogy of movies that also got a spin-off movie, all encompassing in it. So this one's a little more streamlined, because it's about 11 guys trying to rob 3 casinos, but only need to hit 1 target. So it's a little different, where when the original, they're hitting 5 casinos, and they're all separate casinos, versus the remake, it's 3 casinos, but it's 1 vault. So there's a little difference there, like, I get it because of technology and streamlining how things can work. It makes more sense for the 2001. I think it's just more an impressive feat in the 1960 version that they robbed 5 casinos at once simultaneously. It wasn't like they hit 1 casino and then they walked over to the next casino. They literally knocked off all 5 casinos at the exact same time. Hence why they needed 11 guys. So it became a little more confugly over here, and the remake why they needed 11 guys to hit 1 target. So they had to make it a really high security target. It requires a lot of prep work. There's a lot more prep work involved in Ocean's 11. It does end with the end of the heist. Once they grab it, there's a little tag at the end for our characters, but basically it ends with the heist. It doesn't keep going like the original does and kind of creates more tension by going, okay, now what? You got it, now what do you do? How do you handle problems after the job is done? I mean, honestly, I've been familiar with Ocean's 11 since 2001. I saw that one in theaters. The original, they're both very good movies. I'll hedge it to the 2001 because, again, that's the one I grew up with. That's my generation's version. Though the original is amazing. The original is a great film. And I highly recommend, if you like Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, Ocean's 13, and Ocean's 8, go back and watch the original. It's worth the time. You won't regret the investment of watching these movies. It just really, the movies themselves are very close to each other, which is what a good remake should be. It should be close enough to the original that you feel like you're watching an updated version of it instead of you're watching something completely different. We'll get to that later on in this list. I do have a couple of examples where the remake goes completely off the rails. I already did one with Casablanca and Barbed Wire. It's a completely off the rails difference between these movies, though the plot is the same. The aesthetic of those movies is so different. Here, the plot is the same, And the aesthetic is very similar, and it's the characters. They captured very different people in the remake than the original, but they're still very interesting people. There wasn't a lot that needed to be fixed, and therefore they didn't try. They didn't try to fix things, they just tried to improve. And that's what a good remake does. It should improve on what the original does. 13 Ghosts was the same way. The remake improved on what the original did. And that's what we're taking a look at. Do they improve or do they get worse? Most of these movies I really like. I'm going to say I like a lot of these movies, and I like a lot of these movies remakes. Right now, Casablanca and Barbed Wire is the only one making me go, maybe that was a wrong one to put out here, but I've already done it. Because I didn't care for either of those movies a lot. I really like 13 Ghosts, I really like Ocean's 11, and I liked the original movies as well. So just think of that when you're talking about remakes. Not all remakes are bad. Some remakes can be really good. But remakes, you should never say that it surpassed the original. Then 2001, or even the 80s. And we'll get to the 80s in a minute. Or next time we'll get to the 80s. It's a much different time. So who's to say what makes something good or bad? How do you surpass something that is being judged by a completely different standard than the original? I've gone on a rant. I didn't mean to go on a rant. It just kind of happened. But anyways, both Ocean's 11 movies, they're terrific films. Definitely check them out. And check us out next week, as we're still sticking around with a 1960 movie and its remake. We're just moving into the 80s for the remake. And it's going to be a good time. Because this is going to be the first time on this list, and possibly the only time on this list, the style of the movie is going to be completely different. See you next time.